Hello, everyone. Welcome to day one in our 40-day series. We're beginning this on the traditional Christian feast called Ash Wednesday. Ash Wednesday is a rich stepping into a process that has its final point happening on Easter. So we have the image of ashes, of death, of loss, and the smaller versions of that letting go, release, change, healing trauma, culminating day by day by day, culminating in the final exaltation of personal new life. So I am thrilled to walk these 40 days with you. I'm going to share, which is such a joy for my heart, what would have been the opening chant for the first Sunday of Lent. So we will be able to set ourselves energetically to be broken open for this journey that we're going to take together. Then I'm going to slowly read the Kabir poem. And I invite you, as you become more and more present with the sound of the chant and the words, to let the words rain upon you like a gentle rain. Let them just fall upon you and let them enliven or fall away as they will. No need to figure something out, hold on to something, move into your mind or your heart around it, but simply let it be like a balm that enlivens you. And we'll return to the poem too, so don't worry, you'll hear it again. All right. So here we go, beginning Lent. I'm very excited to begin this season with you. I invite you to close your eyes. And with the eyes closed, choose to, in this moment, open your heart, open your mind, open your body to a unique and dynamic experience of spirit at your very center. You have a long-lasting relationship, and you do not need me to evoke this awareness. Simply let yourself open on the soul level to this presence. Audi benigne conditur, nostras preces cum fletibus, in hoc sacrae unio, fusas quadragenario, scrutator al me cordium, in firma tuis virium, a te reversis exhibe, remissionis gratia, multum quidem peccavimus, sed pace confitentibus, ad nominis laudem tui, conferme delam languidi, concede nostrum concedi, corpus per abstinentiam, culpe relinquant pabulum, Ye yuna koda kriminu. Praise tabeata trinita. Concede simplex unitas. Fructuosa sintuis. Ye uniorum munera. Amen. I am standing naked in the marketplace, but no one turns their head to look at me, for no one can see me as I am. Still, I offer my friendship to all. Still, to each wing and fin and cell, I will be forever in obeisance. Anyone who bows touches my feet. Anyone who sings helps me in my work. All labor is because my sinew quivers. I cover the divine flame in my heart, for if I turned God loose from my house, the earth would reveal to your eyes what mine always see. Existence is a lamp, and Kabir the oil it burns. The king is in a mood to grant pardons to acts yet done. If you can understand that kind of power that is dormant in you, you may be ready for a teacher like Kabir. I am standing naked in the world, forever in homage to all movement. I cherish every atom that he moves in this dance. On this traditional day of Ash Wednesday and day one in our 40-day series, the poem by Kabir struck me deeply as just about an ideal framework for entering into this season, whether you're someone that has a Christian background and you've practiced Lent, or whether you're someone that simply has a rich spirituality. There is much to be had during what we call this season to be. And I'd like to invite you, as Kabir does, to engage these next 40 days, not so much as a time of giving something up for the sake of a greater good, but rather let yourself hear the invitation that you are meant to be more deeply impelled into the fullness of presence. You can see the positioning there, the giving up into emptiness, right? We give up and then we don't have it, versus the connecting with some new way we are being impelled into deeper presence. So we're going from presence to presence. And in the Lenten symbology of the 40 days, You'll find in the Hebrew texts and in the story of Jesus that more often than not, the 40 days happened because the individual was impelled. They had a dramatic experience of spirit and then had to go forward so that they would move onward and magnify even more fully the divine presence in which they are and they were. Lent actually comes from Old German and from Dutch and all up in those regions. Lenten is one meaning of it. Longo is another. And it's simply referring to the lengthening season. Spring, the days are beginning to get longer. So the word Lent doesn't have a history of having a real deep connection to what it points to within any religious tradition, but it does mark an important time of the year. And if we marry that to nature, then we can see this Lenten movement as going from the starkness of winter, coming close to the places within ourselves that are awaiting the light to come into fully, and lengthening ourselves, not just nature, but being lengthened ourselves into the fullness that will come in the symbol of Easter and new life. In the Latin, it just began to be known as quadragesima, which means 40 days. That was in the Christian tradition, and more notably in the Orthodox and Catholic traditions today. Other ones do as too. Episcopal and many other traditions have marginal ways that they refer to quadragesima as well. But some of the references that I would invite you to after this webinar to open up the Bible or Google it online, some of the references to 40 days are really dynamic. We've got Moses who goes 40 days up to Mount Sinai. And what's the fruit of that time on Mount Sinai? He becomes so radiant with presence. They say that when he comes back down the mountain, everyone covered their faces. Whenever a presence of God would happen, the tradition, if you read in the Hebrew scriptures, is that the individual covers their face out of a sense of real humbling, of almost not wanting to look at because you're so humbled by. And most of the time, this is with an occurrence of God, not necessarily in a person. But here it happened in a very person. So he comes down radiant, and what does he have? The 10 Commandments. A going forward into a new level of covenantal relationship with the divine. Then we have Elijah, and this is one of my favorites. And having been Carmelite, Elijah is one of our founders. But after Elijah worked great miracles, his life was threatened, which is not unlike most mystics, right? His life was threatened, and he went into the desert. And when he was there, he was angry, he was discouraged, but everywhere he went, God would send a tree that would rise up to give him shade so that he was not too uncomfortable in his agony. And a raven would come and bring him food. And he was instructed by the Lord in 1 Kings 19 to eat, because he had a journey to make for 40 days and 40 nights to Mount Horeb. And this is towards the end of Elijah's life. But there he encounters an experience of the divine that's even more deep and more powerful to what he did to date. And he doesn't experience it in earthquake and wind and fire, things that go by the cave. He experiences it, if you're familiar with the story, in the tiniest of breezes. This 40 days is an opportunity to get quiet, to draw inward in such a way that you can, in a very new and lovely, delightful way, hear that divine voice within. Others, we have Noah, the 40 days and 40 nights of rain. And we have the Hebrews, as you know, saying no more to slavery and stepping into the new life. And they persevered for 40 years, at least symbolically, right? Jonah gave the people of Nineveh 40 days to change their ways. And then we have Jesus, who, after receiving the amazing words at the baptism of John, "You are my beloved, in whom I am well pleased." What does he do? He's impelled to go into solitude, to encounter and realize the fullness of that phrase. And it's a phrase that you yourself could take into this time. You could this evening let yourself recall or even initiate a baptismal moment. And with that, say to yourself or allow yourself to hear, "You are my beloved, in whom I am well pleased." And note where it wants to take you for the 40 days, because that impelling affirmation is meant to take us even further into the being fully alive piece of being the divine in form. So let me refer to Kabir's poem, because I think this gives us a little fodder, a little bit of good material to reflect on what it means. So in the first phrase, he says something that is pretty self-evident, I think. "I'm standing naked in the marketplace, but no one turns their head, for no one can see me as I am." He reveals that as we come into the fullness of divine in form, we are completely naked. We are vulnerable, innocent, authentic. What would be a word that catches you when you come into those states where you know you are naked? You are authentic to the fullest, at least from what you can realize in that moment. And he points that this is veiled to the people around him in the marketplace. But he doesn't have a judgment about it. He's just stating the nature of things. To me, that says, as we grow in authenticity, we are less and less recognized in our fullness. And being in that state does not come about from that type of connection with human beings or events or traditions or modalities. They serve a purpose of helping us, but they're not it. If we find ourselves looking towards community as a place of transformation, towards modality as a place of transformation, the circumstance, the event, the thing, the person will always fall short. For as we dissolve away into the I am, our I amness dissolves a sense of self-reference in relation to anyone. So he's just simply naming a state of affairs. But he goes forward and he says, still he offers his friendship fully. He does not place the state of this coming fully alive upon acceptance, upon understanding. He freely offers his friendship. We are called to that. Lent is a time to magnify, amplify, heighten our surrender into that divine work within us so that every person, every part of creation becomes our friend. Now, if you can name somebody even right now that you don't feel so friendly towards, that you feel a sense of division, there's where some of the divine work can take place. And he points out that even though he's not recognized in the marketplace, that his relational quality with everything around him is obeisance. That's deferential respect. That is complete release from any sense that he might be more enlightened, more in the know. He can recognize that he may be in the know, but it doesn't position him to set himself apart. And even after the deferential respect he offers that flows out of him, he points out that anyone else that bows, that serves, any of that activity is actually coming through him as well. That he's participating in that divine work with every other human being. When we let ourselves move away from the appearance of those before us, and we encounter the reality of the divine spark within, it lets us move beyond whether that person's even embodying it wholly. It doesn't mean that we condone evil actions or unkind words, but it lets us hold the reality that at the center of each creation is the divine spark, and from there establishes the deferential respect that lets us navigate the tricky waters, right, of being alive and being human, and finding ourselves on a spectrum of connection with more or less with people. It's pretty easy to feel connected with people who have a strong divine presence. Not so easy when someone doesn't seem to reflect that back to us. Now, the next phrase is interesting, and I'd like you to contemplate this because I don't want to give an interpretation. Kabir says that he hides the divine flame in his heart, that though he's naked and he's fully there, and he's fully engaged in the world on every level, he said even his sinews quiver when work is being done, when things are being accomplished. So he's very in the world. But simultaneously, he says he hides the divine flame in his heart. Because if he didn't, people would see that existence itself is a lamp, and he is the oil being burned. Why do you think he might be hiding that divine flame? What might be coming in his discernment? But he brings us to what I think is the most powerful phrase of the entire poem, and that is that existence is the lamp and he is the oil. And this is where we have a parallel to every mystic and saint and holy one that I've ever read their works. But here I will quote Jesus. Jesus in 3 different Gospels. I will only quote Luke 12. I like Luke 12, 49 and 50. He says, I have come to cast fire on the earth, and what will I but that it be kindled? And then he follows it with, I have a baptism to undergo, and how distressed I am until it happens. Now, if you do a historical critical analysis of this phrase, you'll find that this comes along not at the very beginning, not right when he comes out of the desert and goes into the temple and reads that passage from Isaiah. It comes later on in his ministry, and he is still acknowledging that he is so on fire, like Kabir, that he is being burned, and he longs that that flame catch everybody on fire. And mysteriously says, and I have a baptism. So he's already been baptized, right, by John? But here he is, another baptism to undergo. I want you to discover your truth in that for you. What are the types of baptisms that have moved you forward in your life? The baptism of a moment, the baptism of a ritual, the baptism of finding a home in a particular modality or tradition, the baptism of the destruction of what used to serve you and no longer serves you. Each of these is a baptism, but Jesus gives a wisdom for how often as human beings can we kind of back away from the baptisms that are not so pleasant. We can compromise, we can drag our feet, we can take long periods of time till we decide we're going to say yes. Jesus's purity is so great. What does he say? And I am so distressed until this will happen. Not distressed that it's not happening, but he knows that it's coming, and he's distressed until it's going to happen. He is not going to have peace until it happens. He's like, bring it on. And I looked at numerous translations, like 12 different translations of this text. Every single one of them used the words distressed. So where can you find in this call, in this 40-day series, where can you find yourself enlivened by Spirit in such a way that you are distressed if you can't act on it? Let me differentiate. It's not distressed that you accomplish something outside of yourself. It is distressed that you yourself are changed in the way you are being impelled. So if you're finding yourself distressed that something isn't changing in your life, Lent can be a time to turn that focus and come back to what's distressing me that I need to happen within, that needs to change. All coming from the love, all coming from the phrase, you are my beloved, in whom I am well pleased. Jesus goes on right after those two verses, and he says, do you think I have come to establish peace on the earth? I tell you that is not the case. I have come to be a source of division. Why? Because that's his Kali goddess energy saying, I want nothing less. I know the path of nothing less. He gives testimony to. And he invites us to settle for nothing less. And that the division that is truly the division, because he uses metaphor and examples, the division is separating out the false sense of self from the true sense of self. You are being invited to be divided, to be separated from the false sense of self so that the true sense of self can so take over your whole being that you are the oil being burned. Let me read the last line from Kabir, because Kabir gives testimony to the quality of this state. He repeats the phrase that he started in the beginning. I am standing naked. But from there, he goes in a different direction. I am standing naked in the world, forever in homage to all movement. I cherish every atom that God moves in this dance. That is the quality of state that Kabir points to, that Jesus points to, that mystics and saints and holy ones, those we know in person, those that have been of ages past. So from the beginning of the poem, where he reveals where there is a veil because he's standing naked, to the end of the poem where he reveals the quality of the state, we are invited to hear that tiny voice like Elijah, to hear the tiny voice, to find what's arising in you where we hear and we are undone by the words of the divine saying, you are my beloved, in whom I am well pleased. And from that very place, being impelled into the 40 days that can inaugurate a baptism. So now it's time to open it for discussion and for share. And here are the two questions I have to form our share. If you haven't been on a call with me, how we share is this. Anyone can step forward at any time, and after they've shared, we simply honor by offering silence. So we learn from each other when each of us can share our wisdom, and the wisdom can penetrate like rain on a dusty land. And we're not here on the call to give advice, to give anecdotes, to create kinds of strategies and discussion. This is to kind of reach deep in and share the wisdom that's arising within you. So I would invite you to share any line from the Kabir poem or even a word, something that struck you in the opening meditation, and why. What in your life is happening right now that would strike you as something Spirit might be saying in you? And the second question, again, you can deviate from these, but this offers a good framework. The second question is, where do you find yourself impelled by Spirit and having to stress that you are meant to change? What would you like to drop into this container for the next 40 days that you're really feeling a call to personal change? Now, the action steps are the second part. This isn't, I meant to change the way I walk down the street. The change is, I meant to be different as I walk down the street, and therefore I'm going to change my steps. So hopefully that's clear. We're not looking so much for the action steps, but the heart of what's being stirred into change by Spirit within you.